Good afternoon, grinders. This is your MLB SimLabs analysis for Tuesday, June 3rd. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka BlenderHD. BlenderHD, if you want to follow me on Twitter, hit that thumbs up button on your way in the door. You know how much I like the thummy thumbs. Hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell to know when we go live. We got a big slate today, 12 games, and it's very important to tune into a crunch time today. We do have some weather concerns on the slate. Not a dramatic amount. I guess the main one is the Tampa Bay game. Will that matter a little bit? Do we want to play Tyler Mahle, I guess, for pitching? He's 4%, 5% owned. But yeah, there's orange, yellow. Maybe there's a PPD even before lock, but Roth is putting it at 50-50. Maybe there's rain in the forecast. I don't know. We'll see. Got to tune in to crunch time later today, about 6:20 p.m. It's on the same stream as Grinders Live here on the channel, but definitely tune in. Kevin Roth has the radar update for you. I guess Chicago White Sox game is yellow, but maybe cluster showers that mostly misses Chicago. So maybe there's a chance for a delay there. I don't know if that game is that relevant on the slate. I mean, obviously every game is relevant, but as far as where like the chalky high projected stuff is, but we have a lot of pitching on today's slate. Actually, there's more pitching options on today's slate than I think good hitting options. Because I look across the board, the totals aren't all that high. I mean, the highest by far is the Minnesota Twins, 5.84. In Sacramento against the A's, who seem to give up a ton of runs whenever they play at home, regardless. Then after that, there's just some in the high fours, like the Dodgers, the Giants, 4.44, the Cardinals, 4.87, Detroit, 4.71, Atlanta, 4.82, Boston, 4.76, the Yankees, 4.72, Philadelphia, 4.46. Then we have a bunch that are like 4-ish, sub like 3.8 or something like that. And that's because we got a ton of good pitching today. The highest projected pitcher that we have currently in our projections here at RotoGrinders, raw point wise, is Spencer Strider, 18 Carlos Rodon. I'm sorry. Carlos Rodon, 19.47, 10.3K, most expensive pitcher on the slate. He does have the about the highest strikeout prop, lowest total against 3.28. But Spencer Strider's close. And Spencer Strider, 8,500. We have him at 94 pitches as a mean. Maybe that may be a little bit on the high side. I don't know how much they plan on like working him to the 100 plus pitches or anything like that. But 8,500, pretty good for him against Arizona. 6.5 strikeout total, minus 120. That's fine. Then we got Pablo Lopez. Pablo Lopez, 9,300 against the A's. Of course, not a great ballpark to pitch, but good lineup to pitch against. We also have Freddie Peralta at 9K. We got George Kirby at 8,200. We got Hunter Green at 9,500 against the Brewers. Christian Sanchez against 9,500 against Toronto. And then like the cheap stuff is like Kikuchi. Kikuchi's down to 6,700. He actually has a 6.5 strikeout prop, but obviously facing the Red Sox in Fenway Park, not the greatest of matchups. So this will be highly variant, right? It's you get a lot of strikeouts and also give up 4 or 5 runs also. And then we also have in the same game Brian Bayo against the Angels, 6,300. Obviously, Angels are a great matchup for strikeouts. Strikeout props 5.5. So for 6,300, you may be willing to take a shot on that. I actually may be more willing to take a shot on Bayo than Kikuchi today, based on ownership, right? Because we can see here in optimal versus projected ownership, which is what I look at in SimLabs, and we have essentially from an ownership perspective. Okay, we take a look ownership wise. We have Strider as the highest owned pitcher at 32%, but his optimal rate is only 19%. Because we have a whole bunch of pitchers that have like 10% or more optimal rate. Obviously, it's a 12-game slate. So no pitchers having, 40, 50, 60% optimal rates. The highest we actually have is Pablo Lopez at 28% chance of being optimal, according to our Sims. We have his ownership at about 20. So that makes him 9%. That makes him in the most under-owned pitcher. And the most over-owned we have is Strider. We have as 32% projected owned, 19% chance of being optimal. Carlos Rodon, we have as 26% chance of being 26% projected owned, a 12% chance of being optimal. And then we have Kikuchi, we have as 10% over owned. So 27% projected ownership, 18% chance of being optimal. There's still high optimal rates, just from a projected ownership standpoint. You could play guys like Peralta and Kirby and obviously Lopez or Sanchez that have similar optimal rates and are much less owned, and that's why they come up a little bit higher here. So I expect to get a little bit more Lopez, Bayo, Sanchez, and a little bit less like Kikuchi, Rodon, and Strider. You still get probably plenty of these three pitchers anyway. But I'm assuming SimLabs is going to prefer Pablo Lopez at 9,300 more than any of these pitchers. Although we should get some Carlos Rodon. And we'll run SimLabs in a second for that. But taking a look at the top stacks tool here at RotoGrinders. We have number one by far is the Twins. 15% chance of being optimal, but I mean they have the highest total by far, and they're a good value. We take a look at the Twins lineup here. Twins lineup. Right, outside of Byron Buxton, like everyone's pretty cheap, right? Ryan Jeffers, 3,700. Ty France, 3,800. Carlos Correa, 3,700. Royce Lewis, 3,300. We got Bride at 29. Harrison Bader at 34. Can you play Brooks Lee, Willie Castro? I mean, they have multiple positional eligibility. Bottom of the order on a road team. I don't mind. So outside of Byron Buxton, like, they're all pretty cheap. It's probably going to be the chalkiest stack on the slate, but you can choose a whole bunch of options here against Jacob Lopez in Sacramento. So, yes, the top stack, I mean, you can see here just like that, and then there's Philly, who's more expensive, then Detroit at 6%. I mean, it kind of like drops off pretty dramatically. Maybe the vomit stack, if you want to call it a vomit stack, would be the Royals against Palante. But the Mets have a decent amount of value against Clayton Kershaw. I don't think many people are going to go there. Kershaw's name value. Atlanta against Zach Gallen. I think that's another name value type of thing, where Zach Gallen is a pretty good pitcher, right? He used to be. So I don't know how owned the Braves are going to be today. I think more people will play the Tigers against Shane Smith. Even playing the Angels against Brian Bayo. I think both sides of that game, the Boston and Angels game, I think you can play the pitchers or you can play the hitters. Like that's a very high variance game. So I would side on whichever side has the least amount of ownership. So I think Kikuchi is actually going to be. I mean, we have him at 27% owned. I don't know if he gets to be that high. Maybe he ends up being 20% owned. Bayo, I don't think is going to. I mean, we have Brian Bayo at like 4% ownership. I don't think that's it. Maybe he gets up to 8. Maybe something like that. I think Kikuchi ends up being over on. I think I'm much more likely to play the Angels as leverage than play Kikuchi today. But we'll see. We'll see in the Sims. We'll see what happens. So let's run. I'm going to run 150 lineups. Just basic stuff. 5-man stacks. I'm playing small field today, so let's just do medium results range. Run 150. See what comes up. Because you can run 150 lineups even if you're just going to play 2 or 3 lineups like I. You're doing research, especially initial research. What do the lineups look like? Who comes up more than others? Like that's kind of you're looking here instead of just looking at mean projections and just projected ownership. What do these full lineups look like? So I go to exposures here in SimLabs. And starting pitcher. I get a lot. Wow. We actually get a lot of Kikuchi. Is it just due to price? It actually turns out to be the opposite. I expect to get little Kikuchi and more Bayo, but it's the other way around. A lot of Pablo Lopez, then Spencer Strider, but not much Carlos Rodon in comparison at 10.3K, right? I guess it depends on the stacks, right? But no, the Sims tend to like Kikuchi. I thought it was going to be the other way around, but this is why you do the research. So as of now, Kikuchi Lopez is actually the combination. Some, Spencer Strider, George Kirby, which I don't mind at 8,200 against Baltimore. Tyler Mahle, obviously we have to see whether or not the Texas-Tampa Bay game plays. Don't play Mahle if the game is postponed, obviously. Then some Hunter Green. Okay, this is interesting. So it wants a lot more Kikuchi. And then we take a look at the teams. Tigers, Phillies, Royals, Twins, I guess oddly enough, it has the Twins as over-owned and Kikuchi as being fine to play. And I thought it would be the other way around. I thought it'd be like, okay, well, we have all these pitching options. So we're going to just play the Twins and play like George Kirby and Pablo Lopez together and the Twins, and you're good. Apparently, SimLabs prefers the other way, to play the cheap pitcher. But I can understand seeing playing the Tigers and the Phillies. I think they both will be under-owned in comparison to the Twins. And then the Royals, obviously, they're cheap. They're about similar to the Twins, and no one's going to play in comparison. And you can probably play a Lopez Rodon lineup with the Royals. We see here the top-rated lineup here is a Lopez Kikuchi lineup with the Philly stack, with good Philly players. You can play Schwarber. You can play Harper. You play Castellanos. Then you play like Dylan Dingler at catcher, and then Royce Lewis and Carlos Correa for the Twins. Very similar over here with this lineup over here. Lopez Kikuchi, and you play a Tiger stack. So Dingler, Torres, Green, Carpenter, Baez, Correa, Lewis. There's another Detroit stack. Here's Lopez Kikuchi lineup with Aaron Judge as a one-off. So this is a little bit surprising. Based on my heuristics, I would have thought there'd be much less Kikuchi and much more Twins. We're still getting plenty of Twins, but as secondary stacks. Like here's a Mets stack. Alvarez, Lindor, Soto, Nimmo, Taylor, Lewis, Castro, and Ohtani is a one-off. But you could go into SimLabs and then you can put in what you want to play. And how does that rate out? So let's say we want to play Minnesota today. Let's say from a heuristic standpoint, I'm going to lock in Minnesota and I'm going to exclude Kikuchi of what I originally thought it would. I thought we'd get a lot more Twins and a lot less Kikuchi. But what do these lineups look like? I mean, there's thousands of lineups that rate about the same, that all have different configurations. There may not be as many non-Kikuchi Minnesota Twins lineups, but there got to be some. So what do they look like? So I'm going to put in just 20 and see. I'm going to lock in the Twins, exclude Kikuchi. So my original hypothesis, what do these lineups look like? What do they rate out as? They're probably we probably can still find a bunch of lineups that have this configuration that are totally playable, that are plus EV. So I'm telling SimLabs to find these lineups for me. Right, here we go. 86. I mean, this totally playable. Playable. Christopher Sanchez, Brian Bayo, and the Twins. Jeffers, Castro, Lewis, Correa, Buxton. Then you have Schwarber's a one-off, Rooker's a one-off, and Soderstrom. Well, Soderstrom and Rooker together. Like this is very, I would consider pretty damn contrarian. You're playing a 6% owned and a 3% owned pitcher. But then you're playing like the chalkiest, they're all double-digit owned, stack for the Twins. And this rates out perfectly fine. Here's another one. Here's with Peralta and Strider. Jeffers, France, Correa, Buxton, Bader. Then you're playing George Springer, Austin Riley, Jonathan India. This ain't bad either. There's nothing wrong with this. Here's a Rodon Peralta lineup with the Twins, with Yelich, Hoskins, Danny Jansen as a one-off. This is perfectly fine. There aren't as many of these, though, to play the Twins stack. But if we don't exclude Kikuchi and look for, we could look for it. I mean, are there Minnesota lineups that even have Kikuchi in them? Let's look at that, because we put in non-Kikuchi lineups. How about Kikuchi lineups? Maybe it turns out that you can play Kikuchi plus the Twins, even though that seems like an over-owned type of dynamic. But can you get different enough in your other spots that that's still perfectly fine to play? Of course, I have it in small field right here. Now, I mean, basically Sanchez, Bayo. I'm not sure. Two cheap pitchers today. Kikuchi, Sagano. That seems a little dicey. It rates up pretty decently. Strider, Bayo, Peralta, Strider. I mean, these are similar lineups. So, no, I guess Kirby, Kikuchi, Rodon, Kikuchi. That's the one. Okay, here's the one with Taylor Ward and Soler in the lineup as well against Bayo. So, not as many of them. No, okay. So, we start getting some red marks down here. So, no, not as many Kikuchi Twins lineups as one would expect when they. Seems like SimLabs wants. See, it seems like SimLabs would rather you play Kikuchi than the Twins today. So maybe that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play 3 lineups. So based on my initial research here on SimLabs, I will probably play a Tigers lineup, Detroit lineup, Detroit, Kansas City, and Philadelphia. Seems like that's the leverage at hitting today. And at pitching, if you're going to play those stacks, I think you just play whoever you want. Right? Play a Lopez Kikuchi lineup. You play you play any. I mean, really. I mean, going back to the previous screen, I mean, there were just all different types of combinations of pitchers. But as of now, as of this afternoon, of course, we update SimLabs all the time. Looks like Kikuchi, even if he's 27% owned at 6,700, SimLabs says that's fine. The Twins, on the other hand, at double-digit owned, not so much. Of course, they have the highest total by far. So the likelihood that the Twins going off is probably pretty damn high. I mean, we have that in the top stacks tool here. I mean, it's like twice as optimal as most other teams other than the Phillies. Or 3 times more likely to be optimal than some of these teams. I wouldn't be shocked if the Twins, they put up 10 runs today and they do well. But from a leverage standpoint, Philly, Detroit, Atlanta, Milwaukee, the Angels, the Mets, the Royals, probably be significantly less owned comparatively. This is probably going to be spread out amongst. I mean, I don't think there'll be a second team that is like super owned compared to these other teams. It'll be very spread out, other than the Twins. So yeah, so that's what I plan on doing today. This is how I use SimLabs. I'm showing you exactly this is exactly how I use it. Of course, I'm using it, closer to lock when projections get updated, right? Lineups get updated. Doesn't change that much. It's not like NBA. It would change a million. This guy's out and everyone's dead. Like that. You need to run everything over again. Here, guy's batting 6th instead of 7th. Doesn't change that much. But I would suggest you use it closer to lock. And this is part of our combo light package here at RotoGrinders. You get full access to SimLabs for the 4 major sports, as well as our research tools like Plate IQ, Court IQ, Gridiron IQ, Weather Edge, our premium written content, which includes Cheese's Goods $1 million musings for MLB. He writes them God knows how many words every day during the week for each slate. So get that as part of the Combo Light package by clicking on the link in the description below, or go to RotoGrinders.com/premium. But if you're not going to pay for that, it's free. Hitting that thumbs up button. Give me the thumb. Hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell to know when we go live. Remember, 5 p.m. Eastern. Grinders live. Right after that, Kevin Roth will have your weather updates on crunch time. Got to tune in for that Tampa Bay game, pretty much. The White Sox game, which has the Tigers in it, so don't play the Tigers if that game doesn't play. But that game should play. The Texas-Tampa Bay game is the one that's probably the most likely to be an issue. So tune into that later. Then come back later in the week for another MLB SimLabs analysis here on RotoGrinders.com.